talked about giving the frontline employees and the firm a common goal to strive for, and the entrepreneurial workforce. Given the challenges that unionized labor presents and that specific job titles are very structured, do you believe that the labor union has a place in this new economy?
Yeah. That's such a good question, because the labor unions are kind of unusual. The labor unions and management both sort of cooperated on the idea of labor as something alien and the division of labor as something solid and with strict lines between all of the workers. Matter of fact, that's what a union contract looks like, okay? Which was just the Adam Smith's division of labor theory kind of made into a contract form. So both, I think the union has to change, but I think management has to change as well. You see, I think the problem is that these were just, the way we conceived of this problem was just, they were both just two sides of the same coin. And I'm saying it's a false coin. So long as the corporation's in its present form, I think the union will be in its present form. Or you just totally suppress any power of the workers at all and just totally eat up your own demand system. So the union right now is not helpful at all because of it's institutionalized almost all the worst aspects of the relationship between workers and their companies. So, yeah.
More or less in the same way, what about the role of the state, of the government? Is a change coming from there? Is it coming from within the industries, private sector? Does it have to come from the state, or we would rather have less role in the state in this change?
Well, I certainly think that what we would want to have is less of a role for the state. I think the danger is all or nothing thinking, that since we want to have, shall we say, as efficient a state as possible, we want, therefore, no state, all market and no state. And these all or nothing arguments always end up in favor of the all side, because in times of crisis, there's not enough nihilists to vote for the nothing, okay? But you have to understand how the state got as big as it did. The state got as big as it did as a real answer to a real problem, okay? There's no use crying about the size of the state without addressing the reasons for the growth of the state. And if you look at the American economy, in the period 1853 up to 1942, it was in recession 40% of the time. 40%. Since the Second World War, when we have basically a state-oriented economy, it has been in recession only 15% of the time. Why? The state had to grow to absorb the excess output, okay? Without the state in the middle, without that big spender in the middle, the system would simply collapse. All right? That's why we have a big state. So what we need to do is build an economic system that doesn't depend on a big spender in the middle, because nobody wants to return to the days of 40% recessions. I grew up my entire life has been in the time of 15% recessions. And that suits me just fine, okay? So in order to address the problems of the state, we have to understand the reasons we got here.
Hello. Up here. Here. Hello. Talking up here.
Okay. Is somebody in the second floor?
Here.
Second floor?
Yeah. Talking about social responsibility, I see Europe related to Africa and investing and supporting with millions or billions of dollars, and they get benefit of it. In the case of the US, where are they putting the money and where they should be putting the money?
You're contrasting what Europe is doing in Africa with what the United States is doing? Okay. I don't frankly know enough about the European aid programs to Africa, but to give any intelligent answer to that question whatsoever. But let me say this. I think Africa is the greatest example of aid gone wrong, okay? And that, I mean, there's so many pathologies in the aid programs themselves, especially from the ones from the United States. I'm totally ignorant about the ones from Europe, so I can't talk to them. But basically, our aid programs are subservient to our global power politics needs, which may or may not be the right thing to do, but from an aid standpoint, we have ended up depressing entrepreneurship, supporting dictatorship. What we have done is made tribal warfare, which is in a tribal society is fairly a normal occurrence, and they know how to limit it. We've modernized tribal warfare, and what used to be done with the spear and the arrow is now done with the machine gun and heavy artillery and the tank and the helicopter. And they're genocidal in the way that would not have been possible before all that military aid. I don't know about Europe's programs, but I think if Africa is to survive, they need a lot less help from America.
Bien. Bueno, pues no me queda nada más que
Hello.
agradecerle al profesor.
Please, in Spanish, the last question, please, doctor. In Spanish, please.
Yes.
Okay. Usted comentó que una de las posibilidades de mayor desarrollo y equilibrio económico es de que en todos los aspectos, en todas las posiciones de la organización, llegue un momento en que puedan participar en la toma de decisiones. Okay, consabido o respetando la contribución que tienen cada una de las posiciones dentro de la organización. Pero, ¿cómo afrontar eso cuando hay una naturaleza humana en la cual supone que su posición es la que contribuye más a la organización, sin que naturalmente sean objetivos en el análisis de lo que realmente cada uno hacemos dentro de una empresa?
Yeah. Well, you have certainly asked what I think is the key question, because I think a lot of what happens in the business world has nothing to do with business relationships per se. A lot of what happens is about power relationships. I'm the boss and you're not. Now, there's certain times when you have to say that, you know, when you have to just stop all discussion and say, I'm the boss and you're not, obviously. But a discussion that starts on that note doesn't go anywhere anyway. And as a matter of fact, it corrupts it, because everybody knows what the boss wants in terms of information, and that's what he gets. He never hears what he needs to hear. I'm not saying I have the organizational answer, because I don't. I have the organizational question, which is the question you just asked. I don't think democracy alone is the answer, because the whole key about democracy is yes, everybody gets to vote, but the real issue is who gets to count the votes. Who gets to decide what vote really counts. So I don't have the answer, but I think I know the terms of the answer, and the terms of the answer must be in some kind of equity sharing, whether it's outright ownership or not. Because eventually a firm has to be responsible to its owners. And so somehow that keeps the, shall we say, internal information and democracy scheme honest.
Bien, bueno, pues no me queda más que agradecer al profesor John Médaille. This for you, the history of IPAD. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bueno, pues muchas gracias. Pasamos al receso y a partir de ahora ya empezaremos. Las dos sesiones que tienen en la tarde serán en sus grupos, en la aula que ya tiene cada uno asignada. Muchas gracias. Thank you, John.
May I ask you one question?